Hello once more to everyone who has just joined. It is now 3 minutes past, and there have been no new arrivals in the last minute or so. So I suppose it's a good time to actually start. So this is going to be one of those multi-presenter sessions, and I'm the first one to talk today here about programming as a sport. And the reason I talk about this is that this has been a side project, a side job for me for the past 20 years or so, to organize programming competitions for talented high school kids or comprehensive school kids in Estonia. And so I'm a member of the jury and the organizing committee of the Estonian Olympiad in Informatics. My day job is being a software architect in a company called Guardtime, and we're doing cryptographic software development there. If you want to hear about this, I will have a talk about it tomorrow at the same time. But today we talk about programming competitions and have a brief look at what is going on in this world, which is kind of a world into itself. And I was writing the introductory slide for this talk, and then suddenly basically a perfect intro slide for it popped up on Twitter, which is then what I stole immediately, and you can see it now. So basically the question is how do you turn an intellectual activity like programming into a competition? And it's if you think about it a little bit, then we humans, we have a tendency to compete in everything we do. There are song contests, there are painting contests, there are poetry contests, and sure, why not also programming competitions? So that's kind of competing is not everybody's cup of tea, of course, but there are a lot of people for whom this is fun, motivating, stimulating. And these kinds of people are who we are targeting with those competitions. And so programming competitions and what it is all about. So in general, a programming competition is people competing in designing and implementing correct and efficient algorithms. And because this is a sport, this is a setting, so the algorithms solve given data processing problems, which in most competitions, the problems have known solutions. So the jury sets problems for which they do know the solutions, and then the competitors compete in solving the same problems as fast and as good as they can. And the problem statements usually are given as stories. The technical term is word problems, like probably you had them in school in math class, where in the number problems you were given an equation to solve or an expression to evaluate or something like that. And then in contrast, in word problems, you were given some sort of story where you had to extract a mathematical model from the story. So you had to construct an equation to match the situations that was described in the story. And then you had to solve the equation. And this is how most programming competitions work as well. So the contestants are given some stories about some people interacting, wanting to do this, that, go to this place, that place, and then having some constraints about what they can do. And then your task is your task as a competitor would then be to write a program that gets as input some data, some parameters about the situation that is described in the story, and then output a good solution. The input usually is just a bunch of numbers describing the parameters of the mathematical models that you have to extract from the story, and then you construct the solution based on this mathematical model, implement it as a program. And then the competition itself works by having the programs created. So in a programming competition, the output that the contestant produces is a program that then gets evaluated, and depending on how well the program works, the contestants are ranked. And the programs are evaluated based on two parameters mainly. First is correctness. So the evaluation of a program in a programming competition usually consists of a battery of black box test cases, and depending on the setup of the program or of the competition, the input may be given to the program as a file, or the contestants may have to write some function corresponding to a given specification to respond to queries from the grading system. But one way or another, the grading system feeds those test cases into the program one by one, and then evaluates whether the correct answer is computed, and then also evaluates whether the program is efficient. So to grade efficiency of the solutions, the execution time and memory that the contestant's program can use to solve a test case are limited. And then the efficiency of the solution is evaluated by feeding increasingly large or increasingly difficult test cases into the program, and seeing how far into this stack of test cases the program gets before starting to exceed the time and memory limits. So in some contests, additionally, the time to write and submit the solution is a factor. In some other contests, it's only a factor as far as the duration of the contest goes. So if your program is not done and submitted when the contest ends, it doesn't count. But otherwise, whether you write your program in half an hour or in 2 hours, in most contests it doesn't count, but in some contests it does. So this depends on the what kind of league you are competing in. And one thing that you may wonder about is when this kind of programming competition is done, what is the relationship of the competitive programming to real world? And there are a couple of major differences. So the first one is that the programs that contestants write in those competitions, they are essentially toy programs. They are small, short-lived compared to any real software system. And this means that the readability and maintainability are much less relevant, even though, of course, if your code is a mess and contains a bug, and then you have to debug it under extreme time pressure during a competition, this is not in your favor. But the programs are small, so really the solution normally fits inside the contestant's head wholly during the competition while the program is being developed and debugged. And they are also short-lived. Typically, the program is thrown away when the contest is over and the program is graded and the results are known. And some more dedicated contestants also look at their solutions after the competition and reflect on what they could have done better, where they lost time debugging things that they should have been able to write correctly from the first attempt and things like that. But this is still quite short term, and nobody is going to maintain the programs in long term. So a lot of those kinds of concerns, which software engineering is dealing with in real life, is not really relevant for competitive programming. And another aspect is that typically in programming competitions, contestants are guaranteed valid and well-formed input. So there is no error handling, there is no input validation needed, there is no security concerns. The jury is not going to run a buffer overflow on your solution unless you have made a mistake and yourself have made some buffer too small compared to what the specification was asking for. And after this general overview, let's look at a few tracks or few series of competitions. So the first one is the International Olympiad in Informatics, which is the world final for a family of high school contests. So the target of those competitions in this IOI series is high school or comprehensive school students. This is an individual contest. Everybody gets a set of tasks and works on them on their own, one by one, and no teamwork is part of this contest. So again, a difference compared to real-world software development. There are partial scores for tasks, which means that in general, each program scores points. The more test cases the program is able to solve correctly, the more points it scores. And in this series of competitions, there are a few hours to solve a few problems. So, for example, in the IOI itself, which is kind of the world final of this series of events, the students have 3 hours to solve. The students have 5 hours to solve 3 problems. So this gives them the ones who want to win by solving all the problems. They have roughly 1.5 hours to comprehend the problem, to design an algorithm, to solve it, to implement it, then to submit it, and then possibly to fix bugs if the result of the grading comes back as some test cases having failed. Recently, the standard for evaluation is that when a contestant submits a program, they get an immediate feedback about how many test cases it passed and how many it failed. But typically, the input data are not shown to the contestants. And in this IOI series, certainly this is the case. So the input data is secret for the contestants until the competition is over. Then they can, for study and learning, they will get access to the input data as well. But during the competition, they only have this ratio of passed and failed tasks, test cases to guide them in their debugging efforts. So if they get feedbacks that half of the test cases failed with wrong answers, they have to find a bug in the program. If they get feedback that half of the test cases failed because their program exceeded the time limit, they know they need to invent a more efficient algorithm and then fix their implementation accordingly. So if you want to see, for example, examples of tasks that have been used in this competition series, you can go to the ioinformatics.org website, and there is an archive of past tasks with test data and model solutions and so on. And this the IOI itself is a world final, and there is a network of national and regional contests as well to feed to give the contestants a chance to try their hand at competitive programming before they are sent out to the world level as members of the national teams. So an example of a regional competition where Estonian students are involved, which is where I work in, is a Baltic Olympiad, which is 10 countries around the Baltic Sea participate. Everybody sends a team of six students to compete, and this is so it's like 60 students. So it's a moderate size event, and seeing that there is a British bias in the conference attendance, probably even this year with remote or virtual conference, and there is also a British Informatics Olympiad. If you Google, you will get the website with the local contacts and information. And I asked if they would need some help, which I could perhaps direct in their way. And they say that the most thing that they lack is awareness of this kind of thing in schools. So if you know of students in your local school who are good at programming, then you may want to ask if they know about this Olympiad and whether they would like to participate. So this the British guys say this would be most helpful. So the next example is two competitions called ICPC and IEEE Extreme. So these are targeted at university students. Unlike the IOI series, where even if you say there is a team from a country participating in the IOI, the competition itself is individual in that series of competitions. But in ICPC and IEEE competitions, this is really a team contest. So a team has a stack of tasks to solve and how they organize their work. Do they do a brainstorming on one task and then on another task, or do they divide them up, or do they make some sort of a conveyor where one guy is kind of the idea guy who figures out what the mathematical model is and then gives it to the next one for implementation. This is all part of the competition for the team to figure out how they would work best. And in those series of competitions, the grading is pass or fail for each task. And then the ranking is in the end first by the number of tasks that the team managed to solve. And second, for tie breaking for those teams, between those teams who solved the same number of tasks by the end of contest, is how fast they did submit the solution. So the time pressure in this event is even more immense. And of course, they also have both websites where you can see more details about the organization. And in particular, the IEEE Extreme is extreme in the sense that this is a 24-hour contest. So it does, the competition starts midnight UTC on Saturday and ends midnight UTC on Sunday. And another part of the strategy to figure out is for the team to figure out how to cope with this. Do you keep going for 24 hours and risk that by then you are so groggy you can't make sense of anything anymore? Do you take a nap in the middle? Do you take a proper night's sleep in the middle? These kinds of things you also have to factor in. In this IEEE Extreme competition, the tasks trick in one by one at every full hour. So during the 24-hour competition, you have 24 tasks, and then in the end, the winner is the one who solves the most of them, of course, again. And in this IOI and those student competitions that I mentioned before, the grading is done on programs. So the contestants write programs, they upload the programs to a testing server, which then executes the programs and evaluates them. And this puts constraints on which languages you can use. All of those contestants support C++. Usually they also support Java. And now Python is starting to become more and more popular among students and is starting to become supported more by competitions as well. But then there are other kinds of competitions where the idea is that as a competitor, you do write a program, but you run it locally. And so the evaluation is that you're given a few sets of input data and you have to submit corresponding outputs. And then the correctness of your program is evaluated by seeing that the output is correct. And the efficiency of your program is in general evaluated by having a limited time to submit the output after you download the input. So, in particular, IPSC and Project Euler are both open to everyone. So there is no age limit or other restrictions. And this IPSC, which stands for Internet Problem Solving Contest, this has been in a limbo for a couple of years now, but I recommend you check out their website and look at the archives of past tasks, because these are really, they are known for really inventive and original task ideas. So this, I actually like the inventiveness of their tasks very much. So if you only check out one of the competitions out of the big stacks that I mentioned here, my recommendation would be to go to IPSC first. Then close to the focus of the Accu conference on C and C++, there are two specifically C-oriented programming competitions. One is International Obfuscated C code contest, where the goal is to write the most obfuscated code possible. So this is the exact antithesis of the good and readable and maintainable codes that we tend to advocate here at the conference. And another one is the underhanded C code contest, which is even more evil. The task in this contest is to write a program that seemingly does something useful, but then has intentionally hidden flaw in it that makes it do something underhanded in addition to the intended function. And you get the bonus points if you can manage to structure it so that when the bug is discovered or when this underhanded functionality is discovered, you can plausibly explain it as an accident. So you can convince somebody, at least in theory, that this was a genuine bug and not an intentional malice. So again, if you want to see some crazy things done, go and check out the archives of those competitions. They are really something to look at. And if you just want to try this kind of programming competition for yourself now that you are not a student anymore, then there are a bunch of online judges open to everyone, where there are both online competition rounds regularly and task archives where you can just check out some tasks that have been used in some contest in the past and practice on them or just solve them as puzzles or brain teasers. And one of the better ones, which with a very wide support for different languages in which you can submit your solutions, and otherwise quite good environment, is Codeforces. They also, in order to motivate people to develop over longer term, they keep ELO style ranking for every user on their server based on the results that they have done in competition rounds. So if you just solve old tasks from archives, they don't affect your ranking. To score ranking points, you really have to participate in actual competitions. And the competitions there are similar to what I described at first for the IOI and the ICPC family of competitions, where you in a competition round you have a couple of hours to solve a couple of problems, and this is all very fast paced. And another one which is quite widely known and well established is Topcoder, which is one of the older online sites. And the interesting thing about the Topcoder competitions is once the competition round is over and everybody has submitted their solutions and scored their initial scores, this is followed up by a hacking phase or a challenge phase, when every contestant can see everybody else's solutions. And they can write up additional test cases. And the intention is to try to catch bugs in the solutions of your competitors. That's a test set from the contest organizers missed. And if you manage to uncover a hidden bug in the solution of one of your competitors, then the competitor loses their points and you get extra points. So this is actually something, again, that actively encourages writing unreadable code. So if I write my solution and the code is a mess to look at, then it is less likely that somebody is able to understand how it works and where it might have a weakness that could be exploited by writing a special tricky test case. The test cases submitted in the hacking phase still have to conform to the task specification. So there is no just overloading with too large data or something like that. This is not allowed. And Topcoder also has expanded in recent years into all kinds of other challenges. There are now design competitions and whatnot. So if you want to see a wide range of different types of things in which are all somehow in some level related to software development, but are not exactly only about programming. And this is maybe a good place to start to get an overview of what kinds of competitions there are out there. And then actually there is more and more. And if I would want to tell about all the competitions out there where you could participate, this would take hours and hours. There are programming competition style websites which are offering their services to companies who want to do coding exercises as part of the job interviews. they are also now starting to expand into actually doing some of the interviews, the technical parts of the interviews also. So you can have if you are a company without the proper HR department, you can do you can ask them to do job interviews as a service for you. So there are a bunch of those out. I don't really have a good idea of which of them are doing better jobs than others, so I don't recommend any of them in particular. There are also a bunch of competitions that are organized as company promotions. The most well-known ones are Google Go Jam and Facebook Hacker Cup, which are then organized by Google and Facebook respectively, and they start out with some qualification rounds done online, and probably not this year, but in past it has been the case that the finals, the winners of the top participants of the qualification rounds are invited to participate in the final round on the company's headquarters. So they get flown in. They get to participate in the last round of the competition, and then they also get tours of the company and things like that. So these are promotional events, basically. An interesting side note is that when the Facebook Hacker Cup starts, then of course all the messaging and discussion is organized on a dedicated page on Facebook, and invariably there will be a bunch of guys who turn up and say, okay, you are great hackers here. How can I break into my girlfriend's Facebook account? Help me with that. So people's idea of what the Hacker Cup is still, the general population's idea is still quite biased. And then finally, for something a bit different, there are programming competitions or programming-like competitions which are not about solving things that's organizers of the competition already know how to solve. And those recently there have been a bunch of those in machine learning and data science space. So companies who struggle to make sense of their data, they can organize a competition with some of the competitions are for fun, some of them are with really serious cash prizes going into 5 digits, and so it's really like basically already proper competitive job market in this sense, and then the team who provides the best model for some target evaluation function will score the final prize, and you can have some idea of what kinds of competitions are. Kaggle is one of the bigger sites for these kinds of things, where the data scientists can show off their chops. And then for somewhat also machine learning AI related things, there is a Lerner prize, which is basically a competition between chatbots to see who is the best at, or who is the closest at passing the Turing test. You probably know what the Turing test is, and for those who don't, a very short summary is that a chatbot that manages to fool the jury to think or to believe that it is an actual human person and not a bot. So the goal is for the chatbots to hide among humans for as long as possible, so that evaluators do not discover who is who or what is what. So this again, if you are into this kind of things, this could be interesting to look at. If you go to the website, you can see what the past entries have been able to do. And that is it from me. If you have any questions or comments, I think the audience can't actually comment so much here in Zoom, so we have to take this part into the Discord. But if you have any questions, I can try to take them now. Well, that doesn't seem to be much at once. So thank you for your attention. And I'm going to hang around in Discord and Remo. So if you want, we can chat there more privately. And with that, I would like to give it over to Natalia.